Welcome, everyone, to our second quarter for 2024. Gosh, it's second quarter already. COBOL programming course, our quarterly webinar. This quarter, we wanted to talk to you a little about what we've been working on in quietly in the back end, this very much loved course. And I say that because we've grown, leaps and bounds over the last 4 years. And I know Mike is always excited about how this, the steady flow of learners. I'm sure he'll share some detailed numbers as well. But over the years, we've had so many of you come through as learners, take this course and content, and then actually even come back as, support and help to help the next, sort of group of learners, if you will. So that passionate, engaged community that we have built is what we are really excited and thrilled about. So this much loved course, as you know, recently we had to move some of the registration system around and things like that. So we wanted to talk a little about that today. But before we get to that, my name is Sudarshana Srinivasan. I work for IBM as an IBM Z Advocacy Program Manager. I'm truly passionate about this platform and have enjoyed my role here as a co-lead of the Open Mainframe Project COBOL programming course and what we've built here over the last 4 years. Very proud of it. And, couldn't have done it without the amazing contributions from our community of, passionate COBOLers. With that, I will hand it to my partner in crime, Mike Bauer.
Thank you. I'm Michael Bauer. I'm a engineering manager here at Broadcom, but I'm a significant contributor to the Open Mainframe Project, whether that's co-leading the COBOL programming course or continuing to advocate for the Zoe project. I try to be out there in the community as much as possible. And as Sudarshana said, I'm really excited about this project and the work we've been doing to continually improve this course. And I'm excited for what Ross will be sharing with you all today. So I'll turn it over to Ross for an intro.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'm Ross Cruickshank. I'm the platform lead for the IBM Z Explorer platform. Been in mainframe off and on for several years, and I'm having a great time reaching out with new content and giving people hands-on experience with all aspects of the Z platform. So we do ZOS, obviously, but I've also been launching hands-on experiences with ZVM. We do things with Linux on Z, machine learning, deep learning activities in collaboration with the Linux One community cloud as well. And on the side, if you like, I've also been working with Mike and Sudarshana and Hartanto and Paul over the last couple of years, supporting the COBOL course environment. And our move in the last few weeks, as Sudarshana suggested, has made that hopefully going to be making my job a much easier thing to do and a little bit more aligned and harmonious and a better experience for everyone that's doing lots of different things around Z, not just COBOL. And over to Paul. We can do a quick intro as well.
Yeah, and so I was one of the original contributors of the learning material and the source JCL data, and I just did a core dump of stuff. And then I just let it be. And then Mike and others have taken over and they've improved on the stuff I put out there. And then I help support the back end system. And so, like I said, I was just one of the original contributors of all of it to get it started. And then everyone else has improved upon it. And so that's basically me.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I was thinking about this some more, and I thought about there's a lot of really, COBOL learning content out there. And I was thinking about how and what has brought us that, consistent, steady flow of learners. And three things came to mind, right? It's almost like the trifecta. One, the course is available at no cost, right? Secondly, it is got hands-on. The most important thing is that it has that learner experience with an actual mainframe. So it not only is at no cost, you have easy access to the content, but at the end of it, you actually do labs on a real mainframe. And I think that's sort of like our winning formula, if you will, I want to say. But with that, I'll give it back to you, Mike, for a couple of quick minutes to talk about what this journey has been like so far in terms of how our learners have come through, because I know you always keep a close eye even on our GitHub and how the PDFs are getting downloaded and such. And then we can talk a little about the context of why we are, moving our registration system and what this means. And that's really where Ross comes in, right, to help walk us through what that experience will be like. As I said, this very much loved course, nothing's really changing other than the way you will register and interact with the content if you want to do that, right? But the content itself, the access to the system and all of that still remains the same. But yeah, Mike, if you have a few, quick updates around the kind of engagement we're seeing with the course, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I would just, without pulling up the exact numbers offhand on the GitHub repo, I would just say, the biggest thing is when we first put this course out in the community, we had I think there were numbers up into the 100,000 view range.
Right.
But we've had sustained interest is one thing I always like to highlight. So folks keep coming to the course, keep registering for the hands-on labs, and keep consuming the content. In addition to those consuming the content, we also have had folks over the years contributing content. We've had folks update the course to leverage the latest Zoe technology along the way. That's something we're currently doing as part of the current mentorship program for the COBOL programming course as well, which we may touch on more at the end. We've had folks even translate the course into various languages, but just that continued interest is something we see in the COBOL programming course. And I would add one thing, in addition to the hands-on labs, it's having folks like Ross in the community helping folks consume this content, really building an ecosystem. I think that's another differentiator for our course, are these communication channels and in this community we've really built around the content.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's right. The SME support that they have throughout their learning opportunity and the journey that they're on. So yeah, I mean, so Ross was, gracious enough to spend time with us to really look at what we had as our existing system. And as learners, you're probably already familiar with how you registered for the course labs. The Open Mainframe project, the GitHub repo, has all of the learning content in the form of PDFs that you're able to download and, sort of work through the content in your own pace. And when it comes to doing the labs, there was a certain way that you had to register, and then you would get a confirmation email with your ZID and an initial password and access to the Slack channel that, is always ever growing, where, as Mike talked about, that's sort of that community where learners were able to come ask questions, and SMEs like, Ross and Hartanto and Mike were always there to support and help and answer those questions. What we've had to do is move to a slightly different registration system, right? And this sort of, I want to call new and improved experience, is where Ross was able to bring his expertise and the platform that he's already built with the IBM Z Explore platform, and be able to build something uniquely for the Open Mainframe Project COBOL programming course, so that we could, leverage the existing infrastructure and registration system, if you will, that was in place, and build it out so that our COBOL learners are able to continue to smoothly, with an easy to use interface, continue to register, have access, get a ZID, and off you go to continue to do your labs. And through that, have that COBOL learning experience. So that's sort of like, the background of what's what. And today we wanted to have Ross come and talk about what this new registration system looks like. What does your experience look like? Sort of walk through that end to end, if you will. Ross, I'm gonna stop talking and let you take it away. You are the SME.
Thanks for that. So as I said in my intro, I've been looking after both of the systems. I kind of inherited the operational side of things from Paul, who has been a fantastic help. I've learned so much in the last 2 or 3 years that I didn't know I didn't know, kind of thing. I now have gone past that little curve of super confidence to I'm now confident I don't know most things. But one of the things we were aware of was that the registration system had a finite time left on it from about 18 months ago. We were told that the mechanism was going to go away, and it seemed like a great opportunity to, rather than reinvent the wheel, was to move the registration for a free system that is hosted currently on the IBM Dallas ISV Center to yet another system that's free and hosted on the Dallas ISV System Center at the same levels of software. So really very little difference at all in the mechanism, and certainly on the back end of what people have been used to over the years. So one thing just to stress here, if you've already registered for the COBOL programming course with VS Code in some form before June 12th, you're still on the system and will be able to keep using that system until the end of July 31st, using the same password reset mechanism, the same libraries, the same commands, the same documents. All of that stays the same. We have this crossover period until July 31st. And then at the end of July, that virtual machine that hosts the ZOS image will be shut down. So it's going away. From June the 12th, so 2 weeks ago, we switched the registration process for all of the courses. So either you came in through the Open Mainframe COBOL GitHub repo, found the links and went to the registration as you finding IBM as the provider. I'll go back through that. Or you've come in through Coursera or Pluralsight or the IBM Learning Platform, or maybe you found it on GitHub, on YouTube rather. That mechanism switched overnight to go to a branded route into IBM Z Explorer, which means you register on the Z Explorer platform, you get a Z ID. It's free forever as long as the platform exists and you keep using the system. You can keep using the user ID, which is slightly different from how we were with the COBOL image that had a kind of rolling 180 days. If you didn't use it, really, we kind of cleared out the user IDs. So as long as you keep using this system, it's going to be available to you to do the course and anything else that takes your fancy around ZOS, ZVM, Linux on Z. All those things are all available to you. But the route in is to get to the COBOL course. Right? And to Mike's point, most of this, the emphasis on that is around the use of modern tooling. So it's around VS Code, using the Zoe Explorer extensions, the Z Open Editor, the Zoe CLI potentially if you want to do it. So we go to currently open up TSO ISPF. That's the one minor difference is if you're jumping in to do a VS Code COBOL course, but you want to do it with ISPF and TSO, there's a little bit of extra hoop to go through, which I'll show you. Right? So the emphasis is much more modern tooling for new people learning COBOL. But there are ways around that, and I'll explain them. So let me share my screen, and I can show you what the journey looks like, and you'll see why it's really not very different. And once you're in, you won't know what the difference was because it's not really different. The course materials have been unchanged. So it's exactly the same course. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of this, we are currently 2 weeks in. This is the mix of people that have signed up for the daily run. The dark blues here are people that have come in from the IBM Learning Platform. So these would be people like IBM Apprenticeship Program or have just found that's the route to their course. We've got people who have come from the IBM Z Explorer platform and said, ooh, I fancy doing the COBOL course, and they've joined. And then we have some people who have joined from Coursera. What's this one? There's a Coursera, not many, so maybe one or two a day come in for Coursera. And then we have people who come from other places. They just don't tell us what it is, so we don't really know where other means. But there can't be that many. Possibly they've come from, we know that people run courses and say, if you want to do any of this and get a free mainframe, go over here and sign up for the COBOL course. So they tend not to advertise that when they sign up. But we can see there's a steady flow of people. To Mike's point, it's that's the kind of pattern we saw on the old registration system, and overnight it just carried on. Right? So there was no break. People carried on signing up and off they went. Right? What we've got here, same starting point for most people is they find it on the, if they're looking for COBOL courses, they'll find this is the one that's free, but you've got to, you're self-directed, doing your own thing. The reason that things like the IBM Learning one and maybe the Coursera one are used in preference is because there's a badge that comes from it. So if you're looking for a badge, do it one way. If you're not looking for a badge, you just want to get hands-on, you do it this way. It's the same course hosted on the same platform. So it's exactly the same work. You just do it with slightly different assistance from the learning management system that goes with it. We do the same things here. We want to get started. You go down to here, look for who's a provider. Oh, there's a provider. So this is where you can get your hands on with a free mainframe. I go to the provider page, wait for it to load. Let me just refresh that.
I think here on this, that's a hot link to the providers below. So you need to click the free environment for completing this lab.
Oh, yeah,
under providers. Yeah,
that's right. It opened. Yep. So it goes to the same link, ibmbiz.cobol labs. So any course that was using that link, ibmbiz.cobol labs, is unchanged. But now it takes you to this registration page instead of an ibm.com, what was originally a domino-based registration site. So this is your branded login. You put in your email address. So I'm going to sign up here for, I think, me.com, and I'll go with Ross for OMP testing. Password, let's put in one here, which is I will do. Let's see if that works. And you sign up. So already got me in. That hasn't deleted me from my last one. So let's pick a different one. I'll go with Ross Cruickshank at hotmail.com.
It's always fun testing or doing demo of systems like this where you have
so I
you have
deleted these
every
accounts.
user ID you own already in the system.
Let's go with that one again. So we sign up and then we go. Okay, so same way you would have done in the previous one, you've got to sign up to some terms and conditions. Then the terms and conditions here are basically, don't be mean to people. It's similar to the Linux Foundation terms of use, right? Don't abuse the system. Don't be mean to people. This is non-commercial. Anything we find on the system that looks like it's commercial use or unlicensed software will be removed. But you're pretty much free to do what you like. We don't do anything with any software that you create on this. It's all yours, but it's your responsibility to look after it. So if you want to take it off the system and preserve it, that's up to you. No personally identifiable information, all those kinds of things, right? And if I go back, will it take me back to my sign up? Yeah. Privacy policy, you'd expect. So it's GDPR compliant. So if you want your data removed, helicopter, sorry. And for the vast majority of people, our system is licensed for the use of 18 plus. So majority of most countries. If you are if you're between 16 and 18, we have an exception process, and we can go through with guardianship and parental approval. But at the moment, you got to be 18 years or older. You got to ask for our parental consent option instead. Okay. So I say I'm going to go in. Okay, so you'll see this is an onboarding challenge, which is, okay, we want to know a little bit about you because you're going to be using our system. We'd like to know who's using them, why they're using them. All right, don't worry, you were in the right place for the COBOL course. As you come in here, you're going to see lots of things that are Z Explorer related. But we're looking for is what kind of person are you? Are you reskilling? Are you a student? Are you an educator? So you're doing this because you might want to run courses on COBOL and you've got other people you're bringing to our system. Are you an IBMer? So we're interested in are people from IBM or from IBM partners like Broadcom and others who are using the system. So let's say I'm an independent reskiller. This is for school. If you're coming from by school, this is universities, colleges, and so on. We have an extensive list, but if you don't show up on there, you can always add other. If we're not doing any of those, here's your email address. So in this case, I'm going to put back in ross.cruickshank@me.com, and hopefully it won't throw me out again. Where do you live? So we're interested in demographics because we want to know that we can provide the right kind of support around the world. So if we get a lot of people in particular areas or particular languages, I'll show you something as we're going along, but we're particularly interested in the different languages that people use as their native language. How did you hear about us? Let's say I heard about it from Z-Day. And do you want to be contacted about IBM events or career opportunities or not? So that's your communications preferences. And I go to the next. Yeah, that's better. Put that over to that side. I can see what I'm doing. I'll put in IBM there. So just for filling in the form, you get 20 points. So there's a little bit of gamification on this platform. So we're going to give you points as you fill in challenges so you can work in leaderboards. So you get an idea of where you are in the skills pool for other people. But that doesn't necessarily apply for the COBOL program. But so I'll show you that as we're in action. This is what we're doing. This is for Z Explorer and for the COBOL programming courses. If you're coming for other reasons, like you just need a free mainframe sign up, you might find that that's difficult to maintain. So we're signed up, we're in, we get the extra point for saying, yes, we're okay with that. You completed your first challenge, right? So the flow of challenges is you get something to read, you click the button, off we go. And I'm ready for Z Explorer. And we're in. So most people, but to get into the platform, more than just registering, your 26 points tells us that you've gone through the onboarding process, you're actually really interested in doing this, and you're willing to accept the terms and conditions. And off we go. That starts you off in the more than just casually signing up. Also means we don't have a lot of bogus accounts created by bots. So once we're in, you'll see the home journey. So the home panel shows you the Z Explorer route. But if you've signed in because you want to do the you want to do the COBOL course, you will see this tile here. Let's just zoom that up a little bit. But you can, that's the other way. You can see that Open Mainframe COBOL programming course is kind of not only front and center, is right at the first recommended for you. You've also got fundamentals. These are the basics for the Z Explorer platform. But the COBOL program is where you want to go. So you click in here and you'll see there are a couple of things available to you. The first one, so always top left, is the first thing that really you should do. You have a route in through VSC1, which is the VS Code setup. But if you click on this one, which you have to do to access the stuff, and that gives you appropriate RACF rights to the libraries. It populates your libraries for the JCL and COBOL and datasets that Paul mentioned were originally created and then have grown. So this means that if you come from the Z Explorer platform as well, you can sign up for this and it will populate the libraries you don't have and give you the RACF rights you don't currently have, no matter how far advanced you've gotten with your Z Explorer environment. So if you go in here, we've got a user ID. So here's your Z user ID. All right, take note of it. Here's the Z user ID for your labs and exercises. Take note, because you're going to have to fill it in with your VS Code. Profiles, it tells you what your password is. If you come from the old environment or you find any oddities in the documentation where we haven't converted it yet, and there is this overlap period. So on the Open Mainframe COBOL site, you'll still see references to 192.86.32.250 as the host address. It should be this. So the documents that I've got on this site currently have that, and we'll do a change request to make sure that the documents roll over in August to not have the old address anymore. But this is where you just keep reminding a few times, that's the address you're going for. If you join through these, if you join through Coursera or the IBM Learning Platform or Pluralsight, you use the documentation that's there. It tells you what you need to do to work through the course, how to make progress. But anytime it says, now do this on the mainframe, you're going to be doing it on the Z Explorer hosting environment. So the other thing we want to know here is what brought you here. And this is the thing that I was showing you in that graph, is the chart. Where do people say they come from? So you've got limited choices. Are you coming from the IBM training course? Are you coming from Coursera? Did you find it, I would say, free code camp on YouTube, Pluralsight? Have you come direct from the Mike Bauer's site, the OMP site? Have you come through an apprenticeship program where you're directed to do an OMP COBOL course or a COBOL with VS Code course? And if it's not one of those, it's something else, right? So I'm going to put other because I'm coming in for other reasons. No, actually, I'll put direct because I came from the direct link. So that you've just got a little bump on your stats, Mike. So then every challenge we have, there'll be a button at the bottom that says, I've filled in the thing or I've done the activity. Press the button and off we go. And you'll see you've earned the 10 points. You've completed the challenge. You'll see here, there's module 1 has become available. Right, so module 1 is the same as the module 1 on the OMP COBOL course. It's just we've wrapped it with some PDF format, and we've updated the IP address, but it's essentially exactly the same. And ideally what we'll do is feed from Mike's course content. How do I make that go away again? There. So you've got the whole course there. It's all the same material. It's all available. Actually, there's no change at all in the content other than it's been formatted and branded so that it can work for our Z Explorer users. So if you come from the OMP COBOL course, you can work through the PDFs that are already there. If you're coming from Z Explorer, you can work here. If you're coming from Coursera or anywhere else, use the documents they already provide. The idea here is everything's already there, formatted for you. But when you're done, if you're on the Z Explorer platform, you can get credit for that, for completing this first module by submitting a job, and it does some validation and you get points. And then it opens up challenge 2, which is lab 2, and challenge 3, which is the extended labs and so on. Right. So the content's there for people who are part of our learning management system. But if you don't want to do that and you're using a different system, that's fine. Right. Exactly the same kind of regime. So if you join the existing COBOL system and just work your way through, nobody's watching you, nobody's tracking you. You're not having to attest to how far you've progressed. But if you want to make that kind of progress and have it tracked, we could do that for you, and then see how we can expand on that as we go along, to tune other things you might find useful as you're going along. So when you're done, we can accept that. So this is your first course. If you, as I said, if you've been on, let me go back again. If you've been coming in from the, of course, I put it into the history now. If we were on the Open Mainframe COBOL, Open Mainframe COBOL course, you just carry on working through these, right? It's the same stuff. Or you can go to the releases. If I go back to here, I think. Is it down here? Yeah. If we go to the releases, you can download the PDFs that are currently generated from this system and work through those. The only difference will be if there's a reference to the old IP address. If you're on the Z Explorer system, that's what you do. Use the new IP address. Right?
And Ross, there's one in the Q&A. I was watching that. Bruno said, I have an account to this platform and I just connect and I can't see this challenge. I'm not sure what he means by this challenge. It may have been a couple screens back. Is it possible a browser refresh or something like that? So it's just something that was in the Q&A.
So let me go back to here. So if we go back to learning, so any user on the system can always go back and say, well, what's available to you? And you can look in available challenges. So this module number 1 is only available if you have completed the COBOL course.
Yeah, Bruno just had some self-deprecating humor in there and said, I found it.
Cool. Yeah. So there's this little extra step because you're joining a platform that has other content on it. We've got this step that says, I'm here for doing the COBOL course, set me up so I can do it. I've already joined the right group. That's why you get to see the access module. The access module says, where'd you come from? And we trigger the dataset provisioning, the RACF profiles, and so on, and then you're in. And then after that, you work through your COBOL course if that's what you want to do, with whichever documentation you're provided with. And if you're not provided with any, you can use the one we've got on our platform, or you can use the Open Mainframe COBOL repo document and work your way through it that way. When you're done with the course, which can take or as long or as short as you want, you then have access to other modules which are available to you. You can do the files, the JCL, the security and privacy. You can do Go, Node, and so on. That's part of the Z Explorer platform, all available to you. Longer term benefits to being on this system is we're right in the middle of doing testing and validation for upgrading to ZOS 3.1. Paul's been working in the background on that for the last month or so. We're getting ready to switch over. So by August, we'll be on ZOS 3.1. And we are in the final stages of preparing a Kix module, which will allow for users to be able to build and deploy personal Kix applications. And by personal, I mean individually, not your own Kix applications that you can then host, but you'll have your own personal Kix region to be able to do that. And we're able to do that through the consolidated platform. All right, so that's pretty much it. One other thing I wanted to mention, the documents that we've created from the GitHub repo copy, we can run through our automated translation, which we currently use Watson Translate for. That will carry on until the end of the year. And we will then be switching over to IBM's globalization service. So we automatically generate, primarily because of the information of who joins our platform. We're currently producing Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, French, German, and we're on the way to doing Japanese. When that works, then I'll also be able to do Arabic and Chinese. So if there's other languages that show up as being in demand, looking at trying to do Hindi. So those languages we can do automatically. It is machine translation, and we do kind of highlight it at the beginning. This is automatic translation. So these are to assist people whose first language is not necessarily English. It is automatic. We can't do one-to-one validation, but we've had reviews of the process and it seems to work. Understandably enough, yes, we'll get genders wrong and tenses might be a bit weird, but it should be enough to keep things at least close to your home language, if you like. So once that's kicked in, then you have the option of using our platform to pick up the Spanish, Portuguese, and other languages as they become available. So that's part of what we can do now. We're consolidating the hosting environment. Key thing I wanted to remember to say again is it's still free. It's still hosted on exactly the same infrastructure as the current system is. It's just next door. It's in a different VLAN. It has exactly the same mechanisms in place. We do a little bit more storage management, SMS in place, but otherwise, that's the journey. So the key thing to remember is when you join, is make sure you're completing essentially the only challenge that's available in the only channel that makes sense. In your COBOL course button, click that, click the access button, tell us which route you came to the platform for, and then you're away. But the last week's users that have switched over, back to that chart, I think it was, yeah. We've had, I think it's a couple of hundred users have switched over or come into the system new, Z Explorer, and they are not asking any different questions from any other user that's joined the Z Explorer platform, like how do I get my password changed? And what we've seen is a kind of drop off in the questions in the Slack channel about how do I get my password reset? So a lot of the questions on Slack have kind of consolidated into, because the documentation's so good and guide you through everything you need to do. Most of the questions are about, I'm not getting this because I don't speak English as my primary language, or I want to get my user ID and password and I haven't read the instructions. So we have the same kind of problems here with people not necessarily reading instructions. So there isn't an email that tells you what to do. You join the platform, you click the access button, and you're away. You don't have to follow other instructions. We then take you through the instructions for setting up your VS Code to get into the system. And for those that later want to do it, I think if I looked at the available challenges, one of the things that you can do later on is request access to TSO. So if you're a diehard and you want to do it with multicolored green screen, if you like, 3270 emulator, you request access to TSO, and then we can, if you're Windows based, you can request a Vista TN3270 emulator from Tom Brennan, which he still provides free because it's the same basic learning environment. So we've arranged that through Tom. So you can get in, but by default, we're assuming that since you joined the COBOL program course with VS Code, that's your primary interest level. I think that'll do for me. If there's other questions, let's have it. Anybody got some questions, or are we all done? Oh,
All right, yeah. So, I mean, Bruno found it. He has another question, Ross.
mhm. Yeah.
If we've already earned the extended badge, we don't have to pass all the DEFIT, DFIT?
Challenges. So if you already have the extended badge, you don't have to do anything really. The If you want to do the UMP COBOL course and you're already on Z Explorer, you just elect to do it. You just say, I want to do COBOL. It shows up for people who have already done the fundamentals. So we offer it to people who have already done a bit of JCL, some data set management. They've done a little bit with USS. They've done Zoe configuration, Zoe CLI. So they're a little bit more rounded before saying, now do you want to try the COBOL course? You can still come in raw and just say, no, I want to do the COBOL course.
Yeah.
But we offer it that way. But it's usually, I think the precondition is you've done the fundamentals and concepts badge. Because what we're hoping is that people will use this as ways to build their badge portfolio of, look at these extra things I've done in the Z world to show that not only do I know COBOL, but I know more about the environment that enterprise COBOL is useful for. I know about files and data sets and JCL and SDSF and dataset management and RACF. I've done a little bit of scripting with Rex and Python and Node.js. So I understand a little bit how comms works and so on. So you've got those badges to add to a COBOL experience or a COBOL certification, depending on which way you're doing the COBOL course.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, no, you don't have to do any other things unless once you've done your concepts badge.
Basically, thank you, Bruno. I see you're a huge fan of learning and enjoy working on these badges on the platform. Keep learning. Yeah, that's awesome. I know we are almost coming close to the end of this session, but Mike, I know every year as an OMP COBOL programming course, we always onboard mentees, and I know our mentees will come talk more about the work that they will be that they're working on right now. But do you want to give a little bit of a sneak peek for our community on what's cooking this summer and what can our learners expect to see this fall as new content?
Sure, absolutely. And just briefly before I jump in to what the mentees are working on, just wanted to say thanks again to Ross. I think that's a really nice flow for those coming into the program, trying to consume the content, how it's all sort of one journey. I know the previous journey, you'd had to kind of register, get the information back, download a release separately. This was all nice and in line. So I think it'll help a lot long term. As far as what the mentees are working on, one big thing that's coming up this fall is the release of Zoe V3 long-term support. And Raj, one of our mentees, is already made a great start on trying out sort of the beta releases of Zoe V3 and seeing how we can make adjustments to the course to consume that additional value. And when that's completed, and this is kind of headlights for Q3 webinar, because we'll likely show some of this there, you all be able to try out Zoe V3 as part of the COBOL programming course. So if you're interested in that as well, you can consume those updates or maybe go through a couple portions of the course again if you're interested in trying it with some of those latest and greatest features. And then Ali and Raj, so we have two mentees this year. They're also looking at how can we further the course in the area of DevOps. So there's some introductory content in the course today about taking the Zoe CLI, being able to run commands interactively on the system, and sort of abstracting those into scripts. Their work takes this a little bit further in that they're looking at automating the compilation, deployment, unit testing, etc., of a COBOL application. And we're also looking at including Jenkins as part of this story. So they're looking at how can they first set this up, but then also how can they develop the educational content to help others learn how to leverage Jenkins and apply it to mainframe, specifically COBOL programs. And then sort of a step beyond where we'll be able to get to in the summer mentorship program. Sort of Ross sort of alluded to this a little bit, is this idea of, if we can allow folks to have their own Kix applications, we can extend that journey to the build, deployment and test of a COBOL Kix, perhaps DB2 application, which is a little bit more common to what you see out in the industry there. So that's sort of our roadmap. It'd be great. We've heard folks wanted Kix for a long time. So if we can get there, possibly even next summer mentorship or something like that, that's on the horizon. But the big things for this year, again, is updating to the Zoe V3 release, making sure we're not only compatible, but also taking advantage of new features, and then enhancing our course with sort of some DevOps techniques, some additional automation processes that can be applied to mainframe application development. And then just to close out, because we were looking for stats earlier, so Ross got me excited when he was sharing his stats for folks consuming the hands-on lab. So I did go out to GitHub and I found that information. So just wanted to briefly share that. We've had over in the last 2 weeks, the traffic on the GitHub site, we've had over 5,000 views from over 700 unique visitors. So still a lot of sustained interest week over week. And not only just viewing the content, but as Ross showed, a lot of folks registering for the hands-on lab. So that really tells us they're not only seeing the value in the course, but consuming it as well. I think that's all I had to share there, Sudarshana.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as you said, Mike, I think today's session and the walkthrough that Ross did was really awesome. It's like, very smooth process, simple to use. And I really like that we're still continuing and able to capture where our learners are coming from, because that's something that's been valuable sort of, insights for over all of this time. So I guess, if there are no other questions, I did check our Q&A. I did not see any other new questions. Yeah, so thank you all for joining in and listening and always continuing to learn and, supporting this Open Mainframe Project COBOL programming course. As Mike would always also say, we're always open to contributors, so net new contributors. So if you have any other ideas of how we can add content to the course or want to actually contribute and add content to the course, please come to the GitHub, repo, put in your pull request or your ideas, and we're happy to continue to work with you. So with that, thanks again. And thank you so much, Ross. I know, for us, it was sort of like happened magically, but it was because of your, expertise in the back end and how, seamless you've made this whole process. So really appreciate all the help and can't wait for our COBOL learners to continue to come, in the droves and flocks as they always do, and take advantage of this amazing new registration system for the same, awesome course that we've built and continue to grow. And, can't wait. All right. All right, then. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right, thanks. Bye.